So you got a girl pregnant. So what are you going to do about it, huh? Okay, so let's talk it over. Now, in my last video, I said that abortion is wrong, and I believe that. I believe that very much. I think that abortion is wrong, it's immoral, it's murder. That's what I believe. Now, if you get a girl pregnant, you got to ask yourself a few hard questions, right? You got to ask yourselves, number one, would she be a good mother? Now, what do I mean by that? You know, there are some girls that you can tell right off the bat, they're going to be irresponsible and selfish, and they're not going to take care of the kid, right? And you got to figure out if the woman whom you got pregnant is like that. Is she a woman who would sort of like, forget about the kid and go off and party hardy all night, right? Would she leave the kid in a hot car on a summer's day? You know, you got to figure out if that's the kind of woman you're dealing with, right? But you know, suppose that she's a good mother, that she would make a good mother, that she'd be conscientious and all the rest of it. Well, then the next question you have to ask yourself is, do you see yourself having a life with this woman? Can you see yourself that you would have a happy life with this girl long term? I'm not talking like long term a year. I'm talking long term 10 years, 20 years. Do you see yourselves developing in a compatible way? Now, if the answer is yes, she'd make a good mother, and yes, you see yourself with her, and that you could make a life with her that would last 10, 20 years, then, you know, there's nothing to talk about. Marry her. Marry her, and that's that, and live your life and be happy, okay? But if it's no to either question, that's when you have problems, right? I mean, yeah, sure, you know, you're dating some girl and you've been dating her for like a year and she's like your emotional connection and shit, right? And she gets pregnant by accident, right? And you know that she'd make a great mother and you were already starting making plans of living together and shit. Yeah, then in that case, get married, fuck off, and just be happy, right? It's when you have doubts as to whether she'd be a good mother, whether you have doubts whether you could see yourself with her long term. That's when you have problems on your hands. Problems on your hands, and you have to make some cold, hard decisions. Right? Right. Now, I speak with some experience in both of these situations, and let's get down to it. See, let's start with the second condition first. She is a potentially good mother, but you do not see yourself with her long term. Right? Well, you got to make it clear to her. You got to make it clear right up front. And you got to tell her, look, baby, I will support you. I'll support the kid, the whole thing. But I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to live with you. It's not going to happen. I will support you financially. I will take care of you to the extent that I am able to. But I am not going to marry you because we are not meant to be together. We are just not going to work out. That's what you got to tell her. And you got to tell her as soon as you realize it. The earlier the better, quite frankly. Yeah, you don't want to, you know, just draw this out. No, because it's fucking torture for the woman, right? And for you, it's just going to fuck you up because you're always going to be dithering. No. You just make the decision. A lot of times, it's better to make the wrong decision than to dither in a decision, okay? If you don't see yourself with a woman you got pregnant, you got to tell her right up front, right off the bat. No dithering, no fucking around. Okay, and don't do this thing of like, oh well, you know, I'll marry her and see if it works. No. That's just, you know, just a car crash waiting to happen. See, if you realize that the woman you got pregnant and you and her are just not compatible, marrying her to see if it might work, that's just fucking stupid. You don't do that. No, you don't. You just cut it. If you realize that you two would not work together, you cut it. At the first opportunity. Don't fuck around. Don't dither. Don't be a little fucking pissant little bitch who can't make up his fucking mind, okay? If you are not sure whether you can live with her or not, that's the terrible gray area, and you're going to have to figure it out on your own. But in my experience, if you're sort of like unsure, well, when there's doubt, there is no doubt. Now, is there? When you do not feel certain, when you do not feel confident that you could live with her and have a happy life together, don't do it. Don't get married to her. Support the kid, sure. If she's going to be a good mother, sure, support the kid. Because remember, if you have a kid together, you're going to be in each other's lives for the rest of your life, or however long the kid lives. That's the fact, okay? So if you are with a woman and you realize that she's pregnant and you really do not see yourself long-term with her, and you know that you'd be miserable and she'd be miserable, then don't get into that car crash. Don't marry her. Support her, but don't marry her. And make it clear. Now, in my own case, I had a situation like that. Yeah, I had a situation like that. I got a girl pregnant. She was a girlfriend I was having way back when, okay? Back in the 2000s. And she got pregnant, and she wanted me to marry her. I think that she deliberately got pregnant, to tell you the truth. And I said that I would not marry her. And there was a lot of screaming and a lot of calls of me being a bastard, that I was just an evil son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I made it clear that I would support her, that I would do whatever she wanted insofar as the kid's concerned, but that I would not marry her. And Jesus Christ, I mean, and I was called all kinds of names. I mean, the worst names in the world, right? And you know, when a woman knows you, she's been with you for a while, she knows what names to call you or what things to point out. She can like really stick it to you in ways that really, really fucking hurt, right? Now, that happened to me. Fucking A, it happened. Of course, a woman who's pregnant is going to pull out all the stops. I mean, she's going to use every weapon she's got in her arsenal against you. Yeah, because she's going to want you to, quote unquote, man up, right? So I know how difficult such a situation can be. And ultimately, in this case, the woman went up and married another guy. I talked about it in a video, in a story time video. I'm not going to link it. You know, you'll find it for yourselves if you're a fan. If not, just take my word for it. The fact of the matter is, she married some other guy and, you know, told him that the kid was his. That's a true story. And it's, yeah. And apparently, you know, she's a great mother. She's a great mother, and the kid's fine, and, you know, all's well that ends well, I suppose, you know. But had I married her, would I have been happy? Would it have been great for me? No, it would have been a fucking nightmare, okay? Because she had certain qualities, certain issues. Well, the fact that she plugged a bastard and convinced some other schmuck, an old boyfriend of hers, that the kid was his, you know, that pretty much goes to show you what kind of a woman she was. That pretty much goes to show you that it was relatively clever of me to have avoided that particular mess. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So anyway, so I know whereof I speak insofar as a second, and I know how difficult it is. Trust me, you want to pull the plug. You want to do the hard thing, because if you don't, you will have a miserable time, okay? Now, what happens if you got a girl pregnant and you know she's going to be a terrible mother? You know that she's just too selfish, too this, that, the other, doesn't matter, but you know that she's going to be a terrible mother, and that it's just going to be a fucking nightmare. Even if you don't marry her, it's just going to be a fucking nightmare. What do? Well, you convince her to get an abortion. That's what you do. And yes, I know what's the title of my last video. There's a reason that this is a series, okay? You convince her to get an abortion, and it's relatively easy to get such a woman to have an abortion, okay? Because see, why do you think that she's probably not going to be a good mother? Probably because she's a selfish bitch, right? She's just like, you know, a party girl or a nothing chick or whatever the fuck. Whatever the defect she has, whatever issues she's got, you realize that because of this issue, this defect, this whatever, you know she'd be a terrible mother, Okay? And more likely than not, it has a lot to do with selfishness and just being a horrible human being. Sexy, fuckable, but horrible, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to fuck some girl, for a long weekend and realizing that she's never somebody that you want to marry, okay? Or even want to be with beyond the long weekend. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But these are some of the consequences of such actions, right? You fuck some girl who's awful hot, that's great for the long weekend, but she winds up getting pregnant. All right? It's going to be fucking difficult, right? Fucking A, it's going to be fucking difficult, like I'm telling you. So, what happens in such circumstances? It's some girl that you do not want to be with. You think that she's going to be a horrible mother and you don't want to have anything to do with her. Well, you convince her to get an abortion, and more likely than not, she'll do it. And she'll do it awful quick. Okay? Because, see, what happens is, when a woman, a selfish woman, knows that she's not going to be taken care of, knows that she's going to be out on her own, she's going to take the easy way out. That's what selfish people do. They take the easy way out. And abortion is easy. And an abortion is like $300 and an afternoon's appointment at the clinic, right? Yeah, that's what it is. It's like that. And it's done. And so you have to convince her. Yeah, you do not want such a woman with her claws into you for the rest of your life, The woman I was telling you about before, I dated her for a while, for a couple of years on and off, right? I knew her fairly well, but I knew that I did not want to be with her long term. I knew that in many regards she was a pretty decent person, but I knew that together long term it just wasn't going to happen. She was always that, the girlfriend on the rebound, kind of like breaking up with somebody else and I'd go back to her kind of thing. Anyway, when she got pregnant, I knew that she'd be a good mother, and she has turned out to be an exceptionally good mother. She's looked after her kid and done right by the kid, right? But, you know what kind of woman you're dealing with. Huh? A woman who's going to be a lousy mother, she's going to be a selfish bitch, it'll be easy to convince her. And the way you convince her is very simple. You just be an asshole. You just be a dick. Yeah, I did a video about being a dick. Yeah, you got to turn it on. Turn on your dickishness. Turn it up all the way up to 11, okay? And you make it clear that you don't want to have anything to do with her. Fuck her. Fuck her pregnancy, fuck her. Tell her. Tell her to her face, okay? Tell her that, you don't have a problem paying for the abortion and that you'll even take her to the abortion. But be the son of a bitch about it. Why do you want to do that? Because you do not want this woman's claws in you for the rest of your life. You don't. If you think that she's going to be a lousy mother, if you think that she's going to be just a lousy person, do you want such a person, with a kid hanging over your neck for the rest of your life? That's a sword of Damocles, man. You're going to get cut eventually, okay? It's going to hurt you. It's going to be catastrophic for you. And things that you want to achieve and things that you want to do with your life, you're not going to be able to do them, or they will be severely warped by, a long weekend with this fuck bunny who was, she was great, a great lay and all that, but, a great lay does not entail a lifelong commitment. So you got to make it happen, right? A girl like that, you make it clear that you're not going to support her long term or even short term, and that you're barely going to support her with the abortion, she'll go to the clinic. She'll make it happen, and after that, she will have nothing to do with you. She will not want to have anything to do with you, okay? And well, that's the reality, okay? I mean, yeah, what, you want to get her pregnant, then convince her to have an abortion, and then have something else to do with her, have some sort of relationship with her? Come on, wake up, okay? Be a grown-up, or be at least fucking realistic about the situation, right? You convince a girl to have an abortion, she's never going to want to have anything else to do with you, right? Because you're basically telling her that you do not see her as mother material. You do not want her to be the mother of your children. And women fundamentally recognize that, okay? And so they will hate you and say all kinds of awful things to you, and they will want to have nothing to do with you, and they will try to forget that the pregnancy ever happened, that they had anything to do with you. And that's what's going to happen, okay? And you want that. You want that, okay? Because such a person, okay, like a damaged girl, like I've talked about before lots of times. I mean, you guys you know more or less what I'm talking about, right? You don't want such a person in your life. And you don't want them with a kid, because a kid is a nuclear weapon insofar as your life is concerned. You know, they can use that kid and decimate your life, because you will love the kid. Of course you will, because you're a normal man. And so you will love the kid, and she will use the kid and wreck your life. So you do the smart thing. You convince her to get an abortion, and you know, at the time, of course, you convince her, oh, you say, you know, it's just a clump of cells, and you go through the whole pro-choice arguments and shit like that. Sure, you tell her lies. You lie to her. Of course, you lied to her to get her into bed, and now you lie to her to get out of the problem that you made, right? Right. You know, that's the way of the world, man. Okay? So you lie to her, and you convince her, and you take her down to the clinic, and you get the procedure, you know, the murder, the abortion. You get it done, okay? You get it done, and you probably never see the woman again. And as you're walking to your car or doing whatever the fuck you're going to be doing after the incident, the procedure, the abortion, the murder. See, you have to understand, sometimes you have to do things that go against all of your moral principles in order to achieve the life that you want. And that's a reality. The naive and the foolish follow their principles off a cliff. The naive, the foolish, the stupid, quite frankly, they try to follow their principles all the way to the bottom. Now, see, guys like that who are very moral and who live by their morality and are very congruent with their morality, you know, they think that they're better. Maybe they are. Maybe they are better. They're more moral, right? Or no, they're not more moral. What they are is just more morally congruent, but not necessarily better morally, okay? That's for another conversation. It's not pertinent to this conversation. What's pertinent to this conversation is the following. See, those guys will lord it up and say that they, you know, bit the bullet, you know, that they acted morally. And maybe they did. But the fact of the matter is that life is extremely long, okay? And they're going to be paying for their self-righteousness for a number of decades. And it's going to be very, very painful, okay? See, if you ever get tortured, right? You're like a soldier and you get captured and they start to torture you and you know, you hold on to the secret. Well, the fact of the matter is, anybody who knows anything will tell you that eventually you'll break. No matter how much torture you think you can stand, you can probably stand a lot, but eventually there will come a point where you break and you tell the secrets. You give up the secrets to the enemy. And that's a fact, because no man can withstand all that torture. They can't. Okay? Because we have limits. You were dumb enough to get some girl pregnant, right? And you realize that that woman is just not the right woman for you, and that it would just be a fucking nightmare long term, even short term. And so you convince her to have an abortion. You're a murderer, as far as I'm concerned. You are, because you participated in the murder of an unborn child. And that's what it is. And well, what you have to do is just shrug and continue to the car and open the car and get in and drive away and just live your life. It's hard, see? We'll talk about it some more in the next video.